very warm welcome. For those of you that are watching from outside the country, KwaZulu-Natal is a very special place on the east coast of the country, something that you want to visit and experience, rich in history and lots of things to do and enjoy. It's a tourist paradise, and I want to share that with you. I've experienced it over the years, and if you're planning to visit South Africa at some point, KwaZulu-Natal is certainly one place to explore. But we're talking about the state of the province, and just before the break, we got a few questions from the floor, and one of them, Premier, if you could just finish off, was the issue of the Izinduna.
Well, briefly, we're in conversation on the matter. The fact of the matter is that the President of the Republic issued a proclamation stipulating how much Izinduna should get and when and so on. But we're not on equal footing as provinces. Some are already on course in doing that. They had been doing it for some time and they had developed a budget for it. Provinces like KZN had never started. From in the old dispensation, KwaZulu government, they never paid Izinduna. And in the new dispensation, it has never been done until some of Izinduna got paid, who sits in traditional councils as designated by COGTA. And then after the proclamation, we found ourselves on the back foot in the sense that we had no budget. I remember National didn't allocate any money. It was a proclamation, but it was never followed with money. So we're in conversation with them, but we've made a start. All Izinduna in KwaZulu-Natal, at least, they do get Sbonelelo, that's what we call it. Nyambo says here, he is part of Izinduna. At least they get 1.3 thousand per month.
Okay.
Now, in other words, 1,300 per month. Now, we are not yet at where the proclamation puts us. They are KwaZulu-Natalians. They understand we've spelled out everything. We've played our cards open.
Okay.
So we are asking a little bit of patience with them. We'll get there.
All right. In a minute, this cut in R1 billion, is this going to derail your plan? Because when you were putting it together, you certainly didn't have a line there saying, in 4 years' time, I'm going to cut by R1 billion.
Peter, yes, thank you. I think that's why in our revision of the plan at the moment, we base our revision on 3 documents. Number 1, the citizen satisfaction survey that we've just completed for the province at the moment, which, by the way, indicated that 64% of the population of this province was happy with the service it receives from government. 36 not so happy, and that's where we need to focus on. We're basing it on our implementation report on the PGDP, which will tell us per our indicators and the targets where we are. And then thirdly, it is also a new situational analysis that we're doing. So we're factoring in the budget cuts. Now, the budget cut has got lots of finer technical details which we can't go into now. But cut number 1 is cut on compensation of employees. Ensure that we've got a more streamlined government that can deliver still the same services. And that's what we're focusing on. Now, that's not implementing the plan. That actually has the potential to increase efficiencies of the plan itself. So in a nutshell, we're not cutting in areas where we, as Premier had said, where our service delivery will be implicated at this stage. We still remain on track.
Okay, talking about efficiencies, there's this culture of deployees, and there's nothing wrong with it in theory, but sometimes a person gets put there because of who he is and not what they can do. Is that culture dissipating?
Well, if there's one fact that we have attached to our aspiration to achieve high levels of good governance, it is that particular point that it has got to have drivers. And in this instance, you need very effective and efficient and knowledgeable and skilled bureaucracy. It doesn't serve any purpose duplicating ourselves. We are politicians, and then we say amongst ourselves, one of us must be a bureaucrat. It doesn't help because we're all going to occupy high chairs, turn around, no productivity. So We need somebody who has been developing over time, accumulating knowledge in terms of how to make government effective and deliver. And therefore, I would say by and large, this is coming home, it is dissipating.
And people who are not performing, are you going to move them out?
Well, I saw the secretary of COSATU here, and I'm sure he wants to listen to us what we do. We develop people.
Okay.
If someone is not performing, they are spoken to, they are trained. We even have an academy here in the province that trains our bureaucrats. We talk to them directly, but if at the end of the day someone doesn't want to perform or is totally incapable, well, they should find their way.
Okay, all right. Monica Woodhouse, table number 3. Monica Woodhouse, table number 3, if you could stand up. Oh, there we go. You're on table 4, are you? Okay.
Honourable Premier, I'm representing the KwaZulu-Natal Civil Society Coalition, and I'm very glad to be here today to be able to be part of this meeting. Children were minusculely mentioned in your very good state of the province address yesterday. There were 3 priorities that you mentioned that were still needed to be developed, and the third one was violence against women and children. And there are 2 things I want to just ask on that. And the first is to please bring back the CPU with very strong and sensitive people to handle these traumatized women and children, and not that they don't need to go further trauma by insensitive policemen. And the second thing is to insist, impose, and ensure a well-functioning implementation plan for Operation Sukumasake. I really like that program. I think it's a wonderful tool for the war rooms to be on the ground. However, and it's a wonderful tool for collaboration services for women, children, and people in our communities. However, in 2015, this was handed back to the communities. So the ward councillors and government departments withdrew, and this has caused much confusion, and very few attend in reality. So the aged, the people with disabilities, the poor and marginalized, we really need to collaborate, work together, and I think this is one part of us being able to be here, but maybe for us as the civil society also to get an appointment with you to actually discuss these matters one-on-one. We would really appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Do you want to answer that question quickly?
Yes, we obviously are quite delighted to have you here and to have you point out what you're pointing. And if there's if there are groupings that are really highly vulnerable at this point in time, it is exactly those groups that you're talking about, especially girl children of between 15 and 24, especially around the issue of AIDS, very vulnerable. I don't know what has happened to our society, but there seems to be too many eyes looking at one girl at a time, especially from males, and look at young girls as
Objects.
I mean, not as an asset, but look at them for their own personal interests, and unfortunately lead them to destruction. And we're therefore saying, talking to you and engaging with you more than what we're doing at the moment will help very much. We already have dreams catering for that particular grouping of children, but we also are wanting to talk to issues affecting women. One of them is rape. It's very high, unacceptably high, and other abuses against women. So let's come together, let's talk, and carve our way forward.
Okay.
Yeah, because I do think that civil society do have some answers, and I think it's that collaboration where you do the policies and we do some of the implementation, and I think that works really well together.
We have a marriage.
Ah, there we go. All right, there's a marriage that's been proposed. Perhaps Bishop Gabriel on table 7 might be able to bless it for us. I don't know. Bishop Gabriel, table number 7.
Ready and willing to solemnize the wedding. Mr. Premier, ngiyakubingelela. on behalf of the faith-based organizations, I would like to draw the attention to xenophobia and racism. Life is about relationships. Yes, we speak of economy and jobs, and it's all very necessary. But as a man of God, as a bishop in the church, we as churches or faith-based organizations deal with people daily. And there is an urgency, really, that we work to better relationships. Xenophobia, racism are there. We cannot deny either of them. Now, my question is, Ndunankulu, how can we as churches, mosques, temples, faith-based organizations, how can we effectively work together? Churches are all over the place, and we have a good footprint in our province. There is no community where a church is not there, or a mosque, or a temple. Now, how can we effectively work together? And Mr. Ndoro, you've allowed Inkosi a second question. Allow me. No, a very simple one.
Okay.
Matungwane, what are we doing about glebe lands? Thank you.
Okay, all right. If you could answer those two questions in a minute.
Yeah, firstly, a little bit of working backwards. When the province seemingly came under siege as a result of xenophobia, we sprung to action. I saw here, I saw the deputy mayor of eThekwini and the speaker of eThekwini, and they were very, very active partners in this regard, and we have to thank them very much. We set up a very effective operational center in Durban that kept tracking incidents of violence based on xenophobia on a daily basis, and we proved to be very effective. Out of that, we realized that this is not a day-to-day matter, it has medium to long-term implications, and we then appointed a panel under the able former Judge Navi Pillay, who worked for about 6 to 8 months, and they have since produced a report which they have presented to the executive, and is due for release in the next week or two. It points out very clearly in some cases, I'm not necessarily reporting in detail, but just to say that there is a need in KZN for all the sectors, civil sectors like yourselves, to come together, one, to educate our people around the existence of other nationals in the province. Because at the end of the day, even people who are local ended up being victims on this scourge. And therefore, what are we doing? We have already appointed this commission, this panel, and we are meant to release this report and then engage on an ongoing basis on a programmatic kind of worked out response on the matter. Hand in hand with it, were all the other questions bordering on ethnicism and so on. We put them together, and there's now a reemergence of racism here and there. Now, all these matters require cohesion, and we also appointed another team under the able Professor Paulos Zulu. They have also reported, and they also we will also be releasing their report. His Majesty has also indicated interest in taking part on this matter, and therefore they have already carved for themselves a role as traditional leadership. We want, Bishop, some of you to actually busy yourselves with your own approach, your own understanding, your own remedy about this matter, so that when we come together, you are able to say, this is the role. In other words, don't insist on asking me what your role should be, but insist on telling me what you want your role to be on the matter, because
Okay.
all of us see that there is a problem. It needs more than government. And all I can guarantee to you is that the environment, as far as government is concerned, is allowing you to play a role, and the one that you think you'll be very much effective on.
Okay. I was hoping this question would have come up already, but it hasn't. KwaZulu-Natal education, it's not happening. And if you're going to build this economy that you're planning, you've got to do better than you're doing right now. Some people are saying that your MEC needs to go.
Yeah, one of the things that was said by Minister Angie Motsekga when she was here on the Premier's Education in Ndaba following the results was that one thing that KZN must realize is that it produces more than 21%. It hosts more than 21% of the schooling population in the whole country. There are people in Gauteng and other provinces who rely on KZN for the education of their own children because of the reputation of the province as far as education is concerned. We have 5 universities here, which is not normal in other provinces, quite a few of them. And we have schools that have a reputation long time, Amazimtoti, and a number of other schools, Nanda Seminary, those kinds of schools that count for themselves quite a profile as far as education is concerned. Now, building on that, look, let me start with results. When we, in 2008, results of this province were at 58%. We brought them up to 77.4% in 4 years. Now, we've had this misfortune of climbing down. We're now at 60.7%. If you sit, any one of you sit and write exams and you get 60.7%, you will pat yourself at the back that, well done, boy, or well done, girl, because it's a pass, that thing. But we happen to be coming from above rather than getting to 60.7% from below. That's the concern. Why climb down 2 years consecutively? Now, I would then say, let's not try to cook easy answers. Let's not try to gate crash to look for answers and take shortcuts. It's a shortcut to say, remove the MSc. No one has sat down to investigate any negative or contributory factor from the MSc. I'm not saying she has, no, because being MSc means you are head of education in the province, therefore you are responsible. She herself has said, I'm responsible. But there's more than that into education. I have background of this. For instance, in 2008, when we got 58%, nobody called for the head of the MSc. And now there are people who may, I respect them because we have opinions. I respect them totally, 100%. But I'm not convinced that the answer lies there because someone can come and say, did she write exam? Did she teach? And so on and so on. What we need to do rather is to come together with those people who are calling for her head. Let's sit and say, will the removal of the head actually, or we will build on that very head? So let's look for much more sustainable answers and build together. And Bishop knows that if your congregation declines, you can't say remove the bishop or remove the priest. You'll say, where is the problem?
Must I improve my sermons?
And so, yeah, that's what they are saying.
All right, we're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we'll get your questions on Twitter and also from our audience here. All right, please don't stay.